a red flag flying here.
Hello, welcome to Socialist Think Tank. Today we have Joe Solo speaking to us. Hello, Joe.
Good evening to you. How are you doing?
I'm absolutely fine, thanks. It's great to have you with us.
Cheers very much.
So,
Pleasure to be around.
Yeah, exciting backdrop you've got behind you there as well. It's really nice. There's loads going on.
This is where I've been doing my live streaming stuff. So I've made a nice little backdrop, so it's a bit interesting to look at because there's not worse than somebody doing it in the shorts in the living room and like a crappy picture wall and a dying spider plant. So I've tried to tie it up a bit.
Oh, it's really appreciated. You'll notice that I've got one of yours there, and you know that's the latest edition. So
proper on message tonight. You'll take that down, won't you, for next person you interview?
Oh no, it's staying up. It's staying up. You know, you'll be able to judge my my Zoom calls by what's behind me. You know, you'll be able to backtrack time with it. So first thing I'm going to do is what I always do. What is socialism to you, Joe?
Socialism is the eternal quest for a fair and just society where nobody gets left behind, and the wealth of that society is shared among all citizens equally, regardless of any of the dividing lines that capitalism puts between us. I always add as the caveat that when you talk to a lot of working class people, they always think it's like some kind of slacker's charter, that socialism means that nobody gets ahead so that everybody gets lazy. It's quite the opposite of that. Socialism for me is about everybody bringing the best version of themselves to the table and being nurtured and encouraged to do that, and society becomes richer and more prosperous and more welcoming as the result of everybody being able to deliver the best version of themselves and bring their skill set to the party. So it far from being a slacker's charter, is quite the opposite. I think capitalism's a slacker's charter because it creates rich and power and it alienates, whereas socialism inspires.
That's a pretty bang on message there. It's quite an impressive one. So you're a pretty respected musician. You know, a lot of us have seen your gigs, absolutely loved certainly within our movement and beyond. I was wondering, what was your musical inspiration growing up?
It was The Clash, probably. It wasn't the first band I got into. The first band I really got into after those sort of like 7-year-old heavy metal records that you had if you grew up in the late 70s and early 80s. The first record that really made me go wow was Stiff Little Fingers, Go For It. I remember a friend of mine had borrowed this record off his older brother, and he had this little dance set record player, and he just like lifted the needle up and he put it on, and I was like that sort of crackle and hiss you get in anticipation of a record starting, and it kicked into roots, radicals, rockers and reggae, and it was like somebody had switched me on. And I think most music fans have that moment, you know, they have that record that made them go wow. And for me it was that, roots, radicals, rockers and reggae by Stiff Little Fingers. The feeling I got there I can still remember now, and I still get the hairs on the back of my neck standing up. As I knew at that moment I was about 14 years old, and I knew that feeling I got there was the one I wanted to pass on. I wanted to work out how you did that, and I wanted to give other people that feeling because it was just so brilliant. So that was the first moment with music. But I think overall it was The Clash, because they stayed with me all these years. They were my band, they're my go-to band. I played the records for years, and then I'll pick it up and then I'll run with it for a couple of months. I just love them, and it's that constant they're questioning you, and they're making you question you, and they're not telling you what to think, they're making you think for yourself, and that's a really important thing. It's a really important bridge between some songs which are, I think this and you're supposed to think it too, whereas The Clash were like, what do you think about this? And that's an important difference, and so I've always loved them for that, because they've always made me question everything. But that's it, The Clash. Loads of other music over the years, but that's my go-to band.
So that's interesting because the Clash are quite, like, political in many ways. I wonder what came first for you, music or socialism, do you think?
They arrived roughly around the same time because I was politicised by the miners' strike, and I was 14 in '84. So that was roughly when I was hearing that record. So I think the two things probably came together because they're making you question the world, and then you see this, and it's all over the news. And prior to that point, you'd had the Falklands War, and you'd had the riots and all this, and then you'd had the Thatcherite thing about, all these lazy unemployed people, which the Tories always do. And then you had these people in communities not far away from where I lived. I wasn't from a mining community, but there were certainly northern communities only a few miles up the road. And rather than sort of sat on their ass waiting for work to come along, which was the Tory narrative, these were actually fighting to keep their jobs, and then they're getting criticised too. So naturally, punk rock feeds into that. How can they have it both ways? How can they criticise people for being sat on their ass, not looking for work, and then criticise people for fighting tooth and nail to keep the work they've got? You can't have it both ways. So immediately that contradictions, and punk rock thinking makes you think, hang on, this is wrong. This is wrong. What I'm being told doesn't sit right. So that was it around that time, '84. An ironic year given Orwell's book, but yeah, 1984 was my year.
So, so with that inspiration, at what stage did you start to make music?
I was writing songs pretty much soon after I learned to pick up a guitar. I've never been a person for learning covers, really. I learned a few in the late 80s because I did a lot of busking, but by and large, as soon as I could play chords, I wanted to write. And so even now, if you say, "Oh, play us a Bob Dylan song," I won't have a clue how to play a Bob Dylan song. Whereas other songwriters will rattle off a dozen. I just never learned. As soon as I pick one up, all right, that'll make a good song. I'll write that. I'm just a writer from the start.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Apart from the difference between you and me is probably that I'm crap. But
I don't believe that for a second.
I did write a few songs myself, and I did kind of go down that route. And I don't know that many covers. And when you're in a bar and people are like, "Oh, you play guitar? Pick this up, play this," and you sit there going, "Do you want to hear one of mine?" No, I don't want to hear one of yours because I want to hear something I know and want to sing along.
Yeah, it's that feeling of being an organic jukebox for people, isn't it? And the amount of fights I've got into. No, if you want to hear that, bugger off and listen to your records. I'm playing this.
So were you always Joe Solo? Were you always on your own, or were you in a band?
No. I started life in 1987 in a school band, just bashing out punk rock covers, and that gradually morphed into excuse me, the pollen's getting the better of us. And that gradually morphed into part punk rock songs and part our own songs, and that gradually overtook it. So we've probably played a handful of Clash and Stiff Little Fingers songs for about 6 months before it started morphing into right, I've written this, we're doing this now, and then that after everybody went their separate ways when we left school, I became a busker. I hitched all over the place. I hitched all around this country, and I hitched France, Spain, Germany, Switzerland, Holland, and Belgium before I came back again. So I did sort of 2 or 3 years worth of busking, then stopped, set up a band called Lithium Joe in Hull, and we were around for 10 years. And then after that, pretty much with a year off while I had kids, I was Joe Solo from about 2002.
You talked there about going around like different countries in Europe. Has that influenced your feelings on socialism? Did you see different things in different countries, or were there similarities as well?
I think what strikes you is not the differences, but the similarities. The language might change, but working class people don't. And it's a sort of we have all these national stereotypes, don't we? That French people are like this, and German people are like that, and Spanish people are like that. And it's rubbish. Working class people are working class people wherever you go. The language barrier might be difficult, but by and large, I think people are welcoming and fantastic, and if you're a certain type of person who says hello and wants to know about stuff that's going on in that town, they're more than happy to talk to you. I think there's it's a cliche now, isn't it, in the wake of Joe Cox's statement, but we really do have more in common than we have that divides us, particularly among working class people. I think once you start getting up, I think people pinch their nose a little bit when you get into middle and upper classes, but working class people are the same wherever you go. The only thing that changes is the language.
Speaking of language, do you speak all those languages, or did you just muddle through?
I muddle through, but I try, and by and large, that's the thing that you really do pick up quite quickly, is that lots of people have enough English to get by on, and it's us with our kind of like island mentality. We don't have a second language by and large, but I knew enough French words and a tiny bit of Spanish that I could make half a conversation, apologise for being English and rubbish at languages, they would laugh and then start talking English. But it's if you don't make an effort that the hackles come up, but that's the same wherever you go. Do you know what I mean? If you walked into the middle of Glasgow and insisted that they stop talking in their accent and started talking in yours, do you know what I mean? You're never going to survive.
Yeah, I just like came across and started pointing and grunting, just going, that one. Yeah.
It's the equivalent of the way that English people go abroad, and laugh about how you just put an "at" on the end of every English word and it's Spanish, and you went out all the time going, "Oh yeah, beacher, beera." Do you know what I mean? This crappy racist nonsense, right? Can you imagine walking into a Glasgow bar and saying, "Okay, the new, I'll have a lager"? You wouldn't even get the lager word out, and rightly so.
So you've spoken a little bit about like kind of your busking and stuff. So when you went solo, how did that come about, and was that like very much influenced by? Did you perfect your craft while you were busking, do you think?
No, the busking stuff, I was really writing band songs while I was busking. So when I came back to Hull, I had a set of songs that were ready made for a band, probably about 20-25 songs. So I immediately set about looking for a bassist and a drummer. So it was quite the opposite, really. I'd had enough busking, and then I wanted to make some noise. It was when the band split, and it to be honest, it broke my heart. You know what it's like. You put 10 years into something, and when it's gone, it's really, really tough, because you've given up your most energetic years. The band started when I was 20, 21, and it finished when I was just shy of 31. And they're your years, and I thought that was it. That was genuinely really, really tough. And I didn't think there was a way through that. And to be honest, I was still writing band songs right the way up until probably 2007. And I just trying to overdub a band on it, so that it sounded okay. And it wasn't until 2007 that the penny dropped that I actually could do this on my own. I could make enough noise to do that. And I could probably write in a different way, that was more lyric focused, so that it was a stronger story rather than looking for hooks all the time. I would tell it like it was in the words, and so it took years. So I was 37 probably by the time I realised that I could do it. So it's a long journey,
So like while you were writing for the band, were they always like socialist inspired songs, or did you have like a different things that you would write about?
I always wrote about left wing politics, but I often wrote in personal politics in metaphor. So I would be writing I would be writing in a way. It's hard because they're two totally different disciplines. When you're writing in a band, it's definitely about melody, and it's definitely about hook lines, and it's definitely about getting people in the surge of the moment, and so it's a completely different way of writing lyrics. So it's much harder to tell a story in a band song, and equally it's much harder to have a punch the air chorus in an acoustic song. So the two disciplines are wildly different from one another. So no, they weren't directly socialist songs, but they were always left-leaning things, and we always did a lot of benefits and stuff for all those causes, you know, for anti-Nazi League and for local stuff that came up, for refugees, for whatever came up, we were there doing that stuff. So I've done that right the way from 91 onwards. So I've always been there for the cause, but not always singing quite overtly politically as I do now.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So in the past, when I've written things, you kind of hide things behind metaphors. Like mine were every single one was about my experiences in trade unionism and you know, and trade union battles we're having, and no one knew it. They thought they knew what the songs were about. But, you know, no, the very few people who knew them thought that you know, thought they knew what they were about, but they're actually like mainly trade union songs. So have you had speaking of trade unions, have you had much trade union involvement?
I'm in two trade unions. I'm in the Bakers and I'm in Unite. So I'm not in a musicians union because I think I'd probably get thrown out under the Trade Descriptions Act. But I'm in those two unions. I'm not active on the ground in those unions. No, I've got my membership card and I vote, but I'm not an active participant unless I get invited to sing at conferences and stuff like that. Largely because I've got loads of other struggles going on. It's not because I don't like the trade union movement or anything. Just that I've got loads, way too much on as it is, you know. But no, I'm in two trade unions. Proud trade union member. Very happy to support with benefit gigs, sing on picket lines, do conferences, all the things that I've been doing over the last few years. But boots on the ground, no, because the company that I work for, mending washing machines, we've got zero chance of unionising that workforce because we never meet. So, you know, to actually get an active in-house trade union, as you know, we'd need 51% of our workforce in the same trade union, and we see probably 2 out of the 180 plus engineers, and you got zero chance of unionising that. So at work, no, I've just got my membership card and it protects me, and it's a great threat when they say we're going to do this, and I'll say, oh no, you're not.
You say like you're not active, but actually it sounds like you've done a fair amount there, like more than a lot of people do in a trade union. So like singing on picket lines and keeping that inspiration up. Is that related to your experiences from 1984 when the miners' strike was on? Did you see the importance of keeping the morale up on the picket lines?
It's quite an interesting thing, isn't it? That it's songs that do it. It's songs that carry it. You know, like, protest music was really born on those picket lines. You know, with the Wobblies, you know, like with the Joe Hills of this world and the Ralph Chaplins of this world, singing on picket lines, lifting spirits, and the power of music. You know, I mean, it was such a threat to the authorities that, you know, Joe Hill was a marked man for years and years and years, and they eventually took him down. But the unifying force and the inspirational force of music on those picket lines, it's an interesting sort of like journey through history, because those songs started out, when you trace them back, they're hymns and they're show tunes with political lyrics. They took something that people knew and they gave it a political edge, and that was how they did it. You know, they didn't have to teach, oh, this one goes like this, you know, like I have to do it. You know, half of it was already done for them, you know. And so, in the same with the miners' strike, and Tosh McDonald actually said this to me. He said, you know, that the show tunes thing and the hymns was part of the culture of that time. You know, the music hall and the church were still big parts of people's lives. And he said in '84, the songs that were sung on picket lines were terrorist chants. You know, that was the cultural reference point at that time. It was, here we go, here we go. Do you know what I mean? There was still songs there, still that kind of oomph that those songs gave them, but the societal focal point where that music came from had changed. It had shifted from the church to the footy terraces, and so I mean, people like poetry on a picket line today who go around London picket lines and rant poetry and things like that and try and G people up and try and, you know, give them that same kind of bump. It's all part of that spirit, you know. If you just stood there shivering in the rain, you think no one's on your side, and then somebody comes out and starts ranting rebel poems at you. It's like, yeah, we could do this, and it's the same thing. It just lifts people's spirits, and I think it's probably more important than ever. I think the problem that musicians on picket lines have nowadays, by and large, is that so many musicians are seen to have, I don't necessarily buy into this, but are seen to have used that in order to make a career for themselves, that now you're distrusted before you're trusted. You know, it's like, oh yeah, if somebody wants a photo opportunity on a picket line to put on Facebook and he's not really with us, you know. So you kind of got, it takes a couple of songs to bend through that before they actually, this guy's all right, you know. So I think it's not as big a part of it as it should be, to be honest with you. I think musicians on picket lines have a great deal to offer the cause, and a great deal of helping lifting spirits when things aren't going quite so well, because it is tough out there, as you know. It's hard enough getting your own workforce to stand with you, let alone members of the public. You know, it's tough.
So you mentioned there about like people making a career out of maybe going to a picket line and then building a career. You don't seem to have tried to build a music career. You seem to like just do things for other people with regards to that. You've got your standard day job, and then you seem to use your music largely to simply fund other causes. Is that the right impression? Have I got the right impression?
Yeah. I don't. I've never made a profit in 33 years. I think the closest I've got to breaking even was one year I only lost 78 quid. But usually I'm about £1,000 down. It's like an expensive hobby. No, I've never made any effort to, and it was a conscious decision. But I mean, in my band years, you know, you kind of have to do the best you can, because you've got 3 other people to think about, you know, and it's their lives you're making decisions for. So we probably were interested in the music industry for the first 3 years, and after that we went our own way and never engaged with it at all from about 93, 94 onwards. And I've only ever met one person who works in the music industry, and in all these years, I've just never, it's never been part of what I wanted to do. Solo wise, no, it's, you're quite right in that that's an accurate description of what I do, and it is a conscious thing. It comes from. Have you ever read Bound for Glory, the Woody Guthrie book? Yeah. The last passage in that book where he's in the studio and they're trying to put makeup on his face and they're trying to tell him what songs to sing and all that. And he walks out and he goes down onto the street and he ends up in this kind of like rolling rabble where people are singing their stories and he's strumming along and making things up, and then everybody's joining in, and it turns into this kind of ramshackle parade of people. That's a big metaphor for kind of where a folk singer should be. But that is probably the most inspirational passage I've ever read, because I was reading it with tears rolling down my cheeks thinking, that's where I belong. That's where you should be, singing people's stories and being a part of the people that you belong to. And if you can't sing those stories if you don't know them, and you can't raise their issues if you don't live their life, you know. And so that's the only thing I ever wanted to be, was part of that parade of people shouting up, and what about this story? Yeah, I can put a tune to that, you know. And it's a great place to be. You meet so many amazing people, and you know, in the music industry, you kind of buy the loyalty of people, you know, because you're paying their wages and people do things for you because there's something in it for them. And down here, you know, people are amazing. They just do it because they want to do it in solidarity with you. There's no in for them. There's no money for them in it. There's no gain for them. They just see what you're doing and they want to be a part of it. And the gain is just it's just this kind of mutual appreciation and respect for the cause and for what you're managing to achieve from very little. And it's a brilliant place to be. I wouldn't swap it for a record deal or a Ferrari or any of this shit that they you know, it's just a great place to be around people who pitch in with their skills and become part of something that's organic and dynamic and it's just brilliant, you know. It's a fantastic place to be.
Yeah, you mentioned like that must be good to have that level of freedom to do whatever you want and not have to answer to, you know, a record label. And you know, that would you find that a really stifling thing to have to do?
Oh God, it'd be horrific. Yeah. I mean, lots of people don't realise that you're on rosters with record companies, and that your year is so and so year, and you're going to record it then, and then you're going to make that record, and then you're going to tour it for 18 months, and then your time on the roster will probably come round again in another 3 or 4 years. And you know, I write way quicker than that, and so many people have these record deals. They get the record made, it gets trapped, they get dropped down the roster because somebody else comes along and makes a bit more money, and they fall back down the wayside. They can't release them songs because they're bound in by publication deals and all this into it. And the amount of people who come out the other side of the music industry bitter and twisted and angry, you know. And I wouldn't swap independence at all. I think as long as you've got the discipline to do it, and you don't think, I won't do anything this year. As long as you're still looking for the next song and you're still thinking, right, that's when I'm going to make this record and that's when I'm going to do this. As long as you've got that discipline in yourself, it's a far, far, far better place to be. There's no money in it. If you're wanting a career in music, there's no money in it this way at all. Not a penny. But that's not what it's about. You know, it's about communicating ideas and about lifting spirits and about being there for people when they need those songs. Because that thing, there are times in people's lives when they need a certain type of song, and they'll drift in and out of your music because at other times in their life they need other people's kind of songs. But if you've written a song that's there for them at that time, then it really sticks with them. And it's that. It's just, it's been there for people, musically and emotionally, hopefully, and financially, hopefully too. All this stuff just been there for people, man.
That's absolutely brilliant. You're not just a musician, though, haven't you written a book? Is that right?
I've done a couple of kids' books with Kevin Pearson illustrating them. I've co-written a book of interweaving short stories with my friend Andy Wilson. We did a couple of volumes of that, and I'm still meaning to, when my voice finally goes, I still will write the full story of that. I love writing. I just don't get an awful lot of time to sit down and do it. So kids' books I can rattle off quite quick, so they're quite handy.
So all this stuff that you're doing and all this, like, kind of, is this all, everything that you're doing, all this giving away of like of your money, and you know, a lot of people would think, well, you know, that's not a really capitalist idea to go around and raise money for other causes and stuff like that. Is that just intrinsically linked with your socialist ideals?
Well, yeah, it's all, when you make music and you make merch and you make all that kind of stuff, what you've got in capitalist terms is a load of surplus value, right? You've got all this stuff that you've created that costs this amount and it sells at that amount, and the difference is what capitalism thinks of as profit, right? Now, you can either think to yourself, right, I'm sat on all this stock, therefore I am worth this amount of money, or you can think to yourself, I'm sat on all this stock that costs me this, and the difference between what it costs me and what I can sell it for can help a lot of people, and that's basically where I come in. So I don't make stuff so that I can make a profit. I make stuff so that I can help other people. So because that's where you can be of most use, because it generates income, doesn't it? It's worth more than it was initially. You've generated something that makes money, and if you're a socialist, a hand on heart socialist, then you want to spread that around people who are suffering, and it's not a charity thing, you know. It's not some kind of like, you know, Victorian thing where the lady of the manor went down onto the streets and look at all these poor people, you know, like they were some kind of subspecies or other. Oh, we must take some of this money that we've made by exploiting them and perhaps spend it on fans for them. How hot they look, you know. It's nothing like that, you know. It's solidarity with people, because you look around you and, you know, there ain't much work about, and the work that is about is crap wages or it's 0 hours. And when you hit hard times, as we've done under austerity, then you see that poverty. You see the streets around you, people struggling, you know. Some people moving out, other people moving in. The house prices going down and down and down and down, and just society as a whole just slipping away. And it's not every community around the UK where you see that. This feeds back into the political thing, because I think some of the discrepancies in the Labour movement are born out of the fact that some people don't see that, and for other people it's all they see. So you have this discrepancy between the liberal left and vast numbers of the working class and it's kind of near the twain shall meet, because neither of them sees the other person's world. But in the world that I see, you know, between the Humber and the Tees, by and large, professionally, but, you know, everywhere I go musically, it's kind of the same story. You know, you're seeing communities that have suffered from a 10-year loss of investment, you know, because not only have they had the money cut in real terms with inflation on, they're way behind where they should be, and the infrastructure's falling apart and the support services aren't there. And you see people who really need help not getting it. And so I don't want boxes and boxes and boxes of stuff in my shed thinking I'm a rich man, while other people have gotten out, you know. And so my dad taught me the greatest lesson in life about money. He said, you only spend it. And it's true, you do. You know, what am I going to spend it on if I've got it? You know, another guitar, well, I've got one, you know. Another pair of shoes, well, I've only got 2 feet. Do you know, I don't want more stuff. So if that can help other people, then that's its greatest value, you know.
Now, given that, like, yeah, you do work full time, fix some washing machines, that's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and given that you do that and then you do music as well as that, a lot of people have like a musical career that, you know, that's all they do and that's what they do, and I'm sure you wouldn't begrudge them earning a living out of that at all, and like, you know, that's absolutely fine. And a lot of musicians, if they earn a living, some of them don't at all. A lot of musicians, like, you know, they don't earn a great deal of money. But like, you were talking about all that capital and all those t-shirts and stuff, and I don't think anyone would begrudge anyone earning that money. But do you think that the link between work and money has totally gone the wrong way? Because, like, you know, you could work really hard for all those things you do, and you give that money away. You could work extremely hard, or you could just turn up as a hedge fund manager and make like billions in a day on a country failing. Has the link between money and work gone?
Well, without a shadow of a doubt, just going back onto the musical thing, absolutely, I do not begrudge musicians making a living off that stuff. The only reason I behave the way I do isn't because I'm trying to suggest that all musicians should do that. It's just that I've already got a job. I don't need two, you know. So, you know, all my musical comrades out there who are trying to scratch a living out of it. When I get around to payday, I'll buy their T-shirt or I'll buy the CD or I'll buy the tote bag because I want to try and spread it around a bit because, you know, it's rock hard for them. And frustrating as it is for me to miss gigs this year, for them it's a lifeline, you know, and so many of them will really struggle. And traditionally, people who aren't able to do their art fall back on waiting tables or serving behind bars, and that work's not been there either, you know. So it's doubly difficult for them. So absolutely no way do I expect musicians to behave the way I do. I'm a washing machine engineer who gets to do that in his spare time. I'm not a professional musician, so that's where the line draws. No, they're perfectly entitled to try and make a living out of that stuff. Gotta make that clear. Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? How you can go online nowadays to Job Centre Plus, and you'll never find hedge fund manager, will you? In the list of vacancies. No, well, yeah, it's capitalism gone mad. It's this thing we call neoliberalism, isn't it? The money's got sucked to a few people at the top who want more and more and more and more, and the idea of it trickling down as was the great, you know, the great capitalist dream. It is just absolute nonsense, isn't it? We all know that it doesn't trickle down. It dried up a long time ago, and if anything goes wrong for us, we pay for it, and if anything goes wrong for them, we pay for it. You know, it's the age-old thing. It's a broken system. It doesn't serve working class people or working class communities much as they might think it does. In certain places, you know, if you're managing to eke out a living and you're just about managing to keep a roof over your head, then you might think you want to hang on to what you've got. But, you know, the system's not going to serve you. It's never going to serve you. It's only going to serve the people at the top, and it's not ever going to do that, no matter how many tweaks we get. It's just failing everybody apart from the people whose pockets it fills.
Yeah, I think like we're always sold that sort of false truth that if you work hard, you'll end up being really, really rich, and if you don't work hard, you'll end up struggling. And in fact, you can work incredibly hard, and some of the most hardworking people I know in my job, like, you know, so cleaners, and, you know, they're now getting called key workers, but they're the ones who, they'll never become rich out of their job, and they do work incredibly hard. And there are some skilled people as well who don't earn loads and loads of money. And, you know, actually, I think it's quite skillful being a cleaner. I was a cleaner before and I was rubbish at it. But, you know, like, you know, it's a hard thing to do well. You need to have attention to detail.
I'd like to think that lockdown and COVID has taught us that every single person out there has a vital role to perform in society, and that's basically, you know, where we came in at with socialism. You know, we all have a skill set that we bring to the table, and we're all important in the way things go. I mean, if you look at how many people were involved in that food chain, where you know, all of a sudden, all the managers who were swanning around thinking that they run the world, they're all sat at home doing nothing. And yet it's lorry drivers, it's dockers, it's forklift drivers, it's sailors, it's you know, it's the supply chain right the way back to the supermarket, to the shelf stackers, to the checkout staff. All these people who are making society function and keeping society functioning, all of a sudden, like you say, are called key workers. They've always been key workers, but it's just everybody looks down on it. And this thing with hard work and money, if you work hard, you'll get on. I mean, that's been bullshit for 40 years. And nowadays, if you've got a 40-hour-week contract, you're expected to work 60, and you won't get paid for the 20 hours overtime. You're expected to do it because there's plenty of people lining up outside the door to take your job. Now, you think about it in real terms, two people doing 60-hour weeks, that's three people's work. And yet both of those two people will look down on the unemployed bloke next door and call him a lazy scrounger. And yet they're doing his job for free. So we've got this kind of, and you're never going to get on, you're never going to be able to save, because them 20 hours a week you're doing extra is wearing you out completely. You've not got any quality of life in your spare time. You're not getting paid for it. You're not able to stash something away. So you retire into poverty. Your kids won't have any kind of nest egg. And you'll wonder why you worked so hard and got nowhere, and why that lazy bastard next door's not as much as you have. You're all going to have nothing in that system, you know. Working hard no longer gets you on. That is absolute bollocks, and has been for 3-4 decades since neoliberalism took over, squeezing every last ounce of profit from working people it possibly can. And it's really, it's the real reason why working class communities have got bled dry, is that for every 2 people out there, that they're doing 3 people's jobs. And that third person, when you multiply it for an entire town, is roughly equated to the number of unemployed people.
That's just incredible that you managed to articulate that so well, but so true what you've said. I'm going to like kind of look for something a little bit more positive now, because we've highlighted, like, you know, what the issues are and stuff, but what I'd like to know is, what are your hopes for the future in socialism? How would socialism create a better society, do you think? Well,
that depends on people reaching some kind of consensus on what to do. We have a number of paths to go down. I mean, as you know, some people believe in the democratic path. Some people believe that, you know, if you can get democratic representation in parliament, then somehow you can usher socialism in through a popular vote. Personally, I think the last 4 years have disproved that. But and other people believe that the only way you're going to do that is if you go back to the roots of socialism, and you re-educate and rearm with knowledge and ideology the working class. Because if what seems to me to have happened is that the Parliamentary Labour Party has detached itself from the Labour movement, and the Labour movement often has detached itself from the working class. And the trade unions, certainly the larger ones, that have become bureaucratic entities, more concerned with sounding right for the media, for the establishment media, than they are sounding like working class people. And when working class people don't hear their own voices in these institutions, they think those institutions aren't for them. And so for me, trade unions and the labour movement should never be pandering to the establishment. We should always be revolutionary in nature. We should always be challenging the establishment, not trying to speak its language, trying to speak the language of the working class, because it's only through that we'll ever change the system. Because it doesn't matter what we try and follow in terms of identity politics, in terms of what we do here. The only thing that makes any sense to change the system is class, because only through class have we got the numbers to change what's going on. If we start attacking it as one group or another group, all we'll ever get is concessions to you know, sit back down again. Now we've given you this, you sit back down again, pipe down over in the corner there. That's all that'll ever happen. We need to attack the system as a class, or we'll lose every time. And the only way we're going to do that is if we recognise that we don't represent vast swathes of the country anymore in the labour movement. They don't hear their voices in Parliament. They don't hear their voices in the interviews on the telly with trade unionists, because they're so concerned with talking the establishment's language that they no longer sound like us. You know, and so there's this kind of disconnect which we're going to need to reconnect with, and we're going to need to re-energise that. It's largely come about because, sorry to bang on here, you know, but it's come about because in the 1980s, our mass manufacturing and our heavy industry were all destroyed, and back in them days, your shop stewards were. And there was massive trade union membership, and your shop stewards they had a vital role to perform, not just in organising workers, but in educating workers. So you not only knew that the boss was doing this to you and that you could do this to stop him, but you knew why. you understood it ideologically. And so vast amounts of our industrial and manufacturing communities were very switched on politically. They understood ideologically what they were fighting, and how they were fighting it and why they were fighting it. And we've lost that because mass trade union membership went when our industries and our manufacturing went. We now have a series of small businesses, and that which is closer to the old artisans of pre-industrial revolution. Well, there's not as many trade union members. There's certainly not mass groups where you huddle around and you get educated like there was before, you know. So what the working class has lost is its ideology. It's still got plenty of anger. It's still got plenty of class consciousness. You know yourself as a working class person. You know you're being shot on from a great height. You know you are, because you feel it every day. You got to work and it's hard to scratch a living. It's hard to keep a roof over your head. It's hard to keep food on the table. It's hard to get an ounce of dignity from your working life. You know, it's hard to picture any kind of retirement. But what we have is that consciousness and that anger, but we don't have the ideology to know what to do with it. So it swings around all over the place. Sometimes it veers left, sometimes it veers right. It doesn't really know how to attack the people that are doing it. So you give it a chance, like the EU referendum vote, in it goes, and it'll give you a kicking because people are angry, and because there's that sort of mass ideological intent has gone. People are just kind of blindly angry, if you like, and we need to make that connection back. We need people to understand what the system is doing to them, how it's doing to them, and how you can fight back. And until we bridge that gap, until we get back into the heart of our communities, we're always going to struggle, because we will be attempting to persuade middle class people to vote for the Labour Party, and that ain't enough. You know, you need the working class to do it. And this idea that the working class are racist now, that you hear banded about, oh, yeah, racist working class idiots, you know. I hate the bloke with a passion, but Yaxley Lennon is probably the only person in this country who understands that aspects of the working class are already in a revolutionary state. They're already angry enough to march and chant and demand some change. And what he does is he gives them that nationalism, he gives them that racism to march under, because people on the left haven't given them enough of an excuse to march the other way. And the reason it proves the working class aren't racist is there's enough anger out there for Tommy Robinson to march on Parliament with millions at his back. But he can't amass more than a few hundred because the working class aren't racist. And they see him for what he is, you know? But on the left, we need to say, look, this is how we do it. This is why we do it. Come on. And at the moment, that's missing, yeah?
I absolutely love that. I was just on the question of class. What is working class? Because like a lot of people would say, like I'm a teacher, and a lot of people would say that's a middle class job, a traditional middle class job. But I've done like sort of all sorts of other roles. You know, I've been a cleaner, I've been a delivery driver, I've been you know, a warehouse worker. I've done all sorts of different jobs. But like, are you defined by your current job, and are teachers working class, do you think?
Well, if you lost your job, would you lose your house pretty quickly soon after?
Yeah, straight away.
Yeah, you're working class, mate. That's the.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? People have this idea that they can break up the working class by suggesting that one trade isn't and one trade is, and some people even try and do it stupidly on money, you know. But back in the day, I mean, the neoliberalism has done this. This is a good analogy for it. Back in the day, a coal miner earned a decent wage, right? They earned a decent wage because they had the biggest, hardest, meanest, most militant trade union at their back, and they got them a good wage. Same as train drivers had a great wage because of the RMT and Bob Crone, what have you, you know? A militant trade union that fought and fought and fought for their members. But so a coal miner earned a decent wage. But if you tried to tell a coal miner they were middle class, Do you know what I mean? You can't do it on money. It's not. Well, this kind of idea that you know that you must be middle class if you do that job, and so and this idea that you can be upper working class and all stuff like this. Now, like, for my money, it doesn't matter what you identify as. It's what they see you as. So if you're still cannon fodder, if you're still if all they do is send you out to work for them, and if you lost that job, you would lose your house and your ways of raising your family and your kids. I'm afraid, despite what you might want to call yourself these days, you're still working class, and that's it. It's not how you see you; it's how they see you.
That's exactly how I feel, but you've said it in a much more articulate way. So thanks for that. So I want to finish off on speaking about We Shall Overcome. You set this up in 2015, is that right? And,
Yeah.
And you also, in 2015, you were given the honour of being Human Being of the Year by the Morning Star. Is that right?
Yeah.
Sorry for embarrassing you, but what a title. Human Being of the Year. That's incredible.
It was a busy year. Yeah. Yeah, 2015 we set up. There's a group of us set it up. It was started on a comment on one of my threads. It was the day after the May 2015 general election. That's the general election before the general election before the general election before last. We've had a few of them, but there was quite a lot of despondency because everybody had thought Ed Miliband had a chance in that election, and you know, he didn't. And I was sort of casting about, sort of like saying, well, look, we need to do something positive, right? You know, stop sulking, wind your bottom lips in. We've got 5 years to turn this around. And on that thread, a friend of mine called Steve Goodall put, what we need is a night of musical protest all around the country. Let's pick a date. And that's basically what We Shall Overcome was born from. Now, Steve sadly died a couple of months back, so I'll get his name in there as a tribute. But effectively, we formed a team of 5 of us that went on to be 9 of us that organised a whole bunch of part protest and part benefit gigs up and down the UK. So we encouraged people to set up their own gig in their own town for their own cause, whatever was needed locally, work for that. So in some places it was for a food bank, in some places a soup kitchen, in some places a crisis centre, in some places refugee support, depending on what the need was locally. So we've done that since 2015, and we've run, you know, probably about 1,200 events now, and they've raised well over £500,000 worth of support. But that's been like, it's not been cash necessarily, it's been food, it's been warm clothing, it's been toiletries, it's been tents and sleeping bags, it's been all the stuff that people need when you're on the front line of poverty. Really, we've raised whatever needed raising. It's been phenomenal, but it's taken thousands and thousands of people to do it. You know, musicians, poets, activists, organisers, and so it's been a massive collaborative effort, and that's its beauty. You know, it's a grassroots working class movement, and it's been an absolute joy to see, and that's why I've got like hope for the future, because I've seen it working. I don't necessarily believe in parties or the party structure, or indeed in parliamentary democracy. I think it's proved itself a lie over the last 4 years. That's a different different podcast altogether. But for me, I've seen grassroots solidarity. I've seen it firsthand. I've seen what happens. I've seen what mountains it can move. I've seen that when you look at the government's own figures, the place with the biggest reduction in homelessness is Ashton-under-Lyne, which is our main base of operations, where Pauline Town runs an operation out of their pub that has housed well over 300 people now. And they've got an 86% reduction in street homelessness in one of the poorest boroughs in the country because of working class grassroots support networks, not because of councils and institutions, because it was driven from the streets. and driven by working class people working together and collaborating. And for me, that's where the future lies, and that's what I'll carry on doing, because I believe in people rather than institutions.
And how could people, if they wanted to support that or help or learn more about that, where can they go to do that?
Well, they can either look me up on Facebook, send us a message at joesolomusic@hotmail.co.uk, or you'll be able to look us up on a website, which I believe is weshallovercomeweekend.co.uk. I think so. That if you look up We Shall Overcome Weekend, you'll find us.
Well, we'll make sure we put it in the description anyway of the podcast or the YouTube video as well. That is so brilliant, Joe. So the last question I'm going to ask you is, what's better, being played by John Peel or playing Glastonbury?
I don't know. To be honest, I ain't sure, because stuff just happens to me, and so I haven't really got any perspective on it. I know that we were driving to a gig in Lincoln when Peely played us, and we nearly crashed on the Humber Bridge. We were like, whoa! But being on a stage at Glastonbury with Billy Bragg was proper moving too. Billy had lost his voice. He'd sung a set on the Friday and he compared all day Saturday, and he had to do this sort of like sing around set. It was 4 of us on the stage, and we take it in turns to sing songs. And Billy had lost his voice, and so rather than not play, he sat on the stage and he just got the audience to sing his songs while he strummed them on the guitar. And it's a proper special feeling, sat there watching a few hundred people singing Billy Bragg songs while he strums them. And it's just got this great big grin on his face. And it's that sort of love that people have for the man, you know? And it was just something really, really special to look out along them, all that sea of faces of people singing the New England back at him. Just beautiful. But I see those kind of things all the time, you know? Things just inspire me everywhere I go, you know? People marching with banners, people singing along, people speaking, people just being amazing, you know? I see solidarity and the benefits of solidarity, and people, you know, inspiring one another to greater endeavours everywhere I go. I see socialism in its social form wherever I travel, and that's why, as a political force, I think if we can demonstrate it socially, we can make it work politically. But we're not going to do that without reconnecting the movement to working class people, and that's where I am. That's kind of my bag.
I'm going to say now, thank you so much for doing this, Joe. It really is appreciated. If you have enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe, and share it as well. That'd be really good. But thank you so much, Joe. You've been an absolute pleasure as always. I could talk to you for another 3 months, to be fair. You know, every single story is interesting, and thanks for all you do, because I think everyone really appreciates it. And you do deserve that award of Human Being of the Year 2015. Not every year, mind. There's been other good humans as well, but you know, I bet
socialism, we've got to share that accolade around.
Yeah, we can all have it. We can rotate it between us. Thank you so much again, and yeah.
Pleasure.
Cheers.
Solidarity.
We'll keep the red flag flying here.